October 21st, 1978, 16 in the evening. A 20-year-old kid climbs into a small plane, points it south over the Bass Strait, and flies directly into the most documented unsolved disappearance in aviation history. He never lands. The plane never crashes. He just stops existing. And the last thing the world ever hears from him is 17 seconds of a sound that nobody in 48 years has been able to explain. It is just after 6 in the evening. The sun is dropping below the horizon, leaving the sky burst purple and fading to pitch black. You are sitting in the left seat of a Cessna 182. Below you is the Bass Strait, a wide, dark stretch of cold, open water. The engine noise is a loud, steady hum. You are heading to King Island, a complete routine cargo run. You check the glowing dials on your panel. Altitude is steady at 4,500 feet. Airspeed is good. Everything is exactly as it should be. The world outside is mostly empty darkness. Then you see it. Out of the window, there is traffic. There shouldn't be traffic out here. Not right on top of you. You reach for the radio. You call Melbourne Freight Service and ask,
This is Delta Sierra Juliet. Do you have any known military traffic in my area at 4,500?
The radio crackles back.
Delta Sierra Juliet, negative. No known traffic in your area.
But you are looking right at it. 4 bright lights. It just passed over you, moving incredibly fast. You tell Melbourne this.
The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. Can you confirm, Dan? Is there any known traffic?
But the thing comes back. It approaches you from the east. It feels like it is playing some kind of game. You describe it as best you can to the voice on the radio. You tell them it has a shiny metallic surface. There is a green light. The thing vanishes. The sky is empty. And then, suddenly, it drops down out of nowhere. It is right above you, orbiting. You are alone in a tiny box, over an endless black ocean. And something impossible is hovering directly over your roof. You press the mic button one last time. You say the words.
It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft.
You don't let go the button for 17 seconds. The microphone stays open. The voice in Melbourne doesn't hear you breathing. They don't hear you screaming. For 17 long seconds, the radio broadcasts a harsh, metallic scraping sound, metal dragging against metal. Then the transmission cuts dead. This is not a story that happened. Frederick Valentich, October 21, 1978. They never found him. The search planes went up immediately. They scoured the open water of Bass Strait for days. They found absolutely nothing. No oil slick, no seat cushions, no floating wreckage. The Cessna 182 simply ceased to exit. Planes go down in deep water and vanish. That happens. He was 20 years old. He was from Melbourne. And he was genuinely one of the most interesting people involved in any disappearance I have ever researched. Let me tell you about him. Frederick had 2 obsessions in his life: flying and aliens. And when I say obsession, I am not being casual about it. He kept a folder, an actual physical folder, newspaper clippings of UFO sightings he had collected over years. He watched every television documentary on the subject he could find. He talked about it constantly with people around him. And the reason he believed so hard was because, according to his father, Frederick had seen one himself. At some point before any of this happened, he looked up at the sky and saw something he could not explain. And that experience did not give him peace. It gave him fear. He told people he was scared that one day they would come for him specifically. He was afraid they would attack him. I kept thinking about that. A kid sitting in his bedroom, cutting newspaper clippings, genuinely afraid of what he had seen. He was not a good pilot, and I want to be careful here because saying that about someone who is dead feels rough. But the facts are facts, and they matter for everything that comes later. He had 150 hours of in-flight training. He had his license. He could fly during the day and under certain night conditions. But every time he tried to take the next step, the commercial license, he failed. Not once, 5 times. The last attempt was less than a month before. He disappeared. And it was not just about the exams. In the short time he had been flying, he had already picked up 3 separate violations. One for straying into a restricted area, 2 separate times for flying blind into clouds. How do you even get caught doing that twice? I don't know, but he did. The most recent violation was bad enough that he was facing actual prosecution. His aviation career, the thing he wanted more than anything else in the world, was collapsing around him, piece by piece. At that exact same moment, he climbed into that plane. Here's the last thing that always bothered me about that night. Frederick gave 2 different explanations for why he was going to King Island. To one person, he said he was visiting friends. To another, he said he was picking up crayfish. 2 completely different reasons. Neither of them confirmed. He also never called the King Island airport to let them know he was coming. That is the standard procedure. If you are landing somewhere, you contact them. He didn't, which means they had no idea he was coming, which means there is a real possibility he was never planning to land there at all. So you have a 20-year-old kid with a falling career, a deep fear of something in the sky, no clear reason to be on this flight, and a destination he may never have intended to reach. Alright, let's go through what people think happened. The first theory is the straightforward one. He got disoriented, lost control of the plane, went into a spiral and hit the water. The Bass Strait swallowed the wreckage because it is deep and cold, and that is what cold water does. And honestly, from a pure probability standpoint, this is the most defensible answer. Pilots die in controlled flights into terrain all the time. Night flying over open water with no horizon reference is genuinely dangerous, even for experienced pilots. And Frederick was not an experienced pilot. There is a specific phenomenon that fits here called the graveyard spiral. Here is how it works, and this is going to mess with you a little bit. You enter a steep bank at night, but your inner ear, after a few seconds, stops registering the turn. The fluid settles. The sensation of turning disappears. So your brain decides you are flying level. You are not flying level. You are rotating towards the earth at increasing speed. But your body is completely calm. Your hands are steady. You feel fine. So you hold the controls steady and the spiral gets faster. And the ocean gets closer. And you still feel fine. Right up until you don't feel anything at all. The graveyard spiral kills you while your body is convinced you are in control. That is what it is named after. So the theory is coherent. Night flight, disorientation, spiral, impact. The wreckage sank, case closed. Except the search terms found absolutely nothing. Not a seat cushions, not a fuel slick on the water, not a single piece of Cessna 182 for a plane that supposedly hit the Bass Strait at high speed. The ocean gave back nothing. And then there is the sound. A Cessna in an uncontrolled spiral descent is loud. Engine stress, wind pressure, airframe vibration. But a metallic scraping sound, slow, pulsing, rhythmic. That is not what a plane sounds like. When it goes down, that sound does not belong to a crash. It belongs to something else pressing against the hull. So the crash theory explains the disappearance. It does not explain the sound. And it does not explain why 48 years of ocean searching has turned up zero wreckage. This is the theory I find most interesting, and I know that sounds cold. But hear me out. What if Frederick staged the whole thing? Think about where he was in his life. 5 failed exams, 3 violations, a prosecution incoming. His dream of becoming a commercial pilot was not just stalled, it was actively being taken away from him. He was 20-year-old, and he was watching the thing he loved most in the world fall apart in slow motion. And he had one other thing. He had a deep, years-long obsession with UFOs. He had collected the clips. He had seen something himself. He believed. He wanted other people to believe. Now imagine you are Frederick, sitting in the bedroom, looking at that folder. What if you flew out over the Bass Strait and faked a UFO encounter on a recorded radio channel? And what if you came home with that tape, with your voice describing a metallic craft with a green light? And suddenly you are not a failed pilot. You are the most famous person in Australia. Books, television programs, speaking tours. The man who proved it. The career you always wanted, just in a completely different direction. The motivation is completely there. The conflicting reason for the trip. Never contracting King Island. The timing, going out at dusk when visibility was dropping, when the radio exchange would be hardest to verify visually. It all fits our setup. But here is where the theory breaks. He never came home. And if you survive a hoax, you come home. And that is the entire point of a hoax. You go out, you do the thing, you come back with the story. Frederick never came back. Nobody was found. But no living Frederick was found either. He simply stopped existing along with the plane. So either the hoax worked perfectly and he vanished on purpose and has been living under a different name for 48 years. He staged the UFO encounter and then something actually happened. He crashed for a real while trying to fake a crash. And if that is true, if he died trying to run a stunt, then those 17 seconds of a metallic scraping are the sound of a plane going completely wrong in the dark. I don't know if that is sadder or scarier than the alternatives. On the night Frederick disappeared, of UFO sightings over the Bass Strait from other witnesses on the ground, people who had no contact with Frederick and no knowledge of what was happening on that radio channel. They reported lights, unusual movements, things in the sky that did not match known aircraft. There is also a photograph taken that night in that area. It shows something in the sky that has never been conclusively identified. And then there are the peoples who actually heard the original radio recording, the full thing, before it disappeared from the internet. And they all say the same thing. The panic in Frederick's voice was not a performance. It was real fear. The kind that is almost impossible to fake convincingly under pressure. People who have listened to it says it made them feel physically sick. And the scraping sound. Nobody has produced a credible mechanical explanation for what that specific sound come from a Cessna 182 at that specific moment. This was not a crash sound, not an engine sound, a metallic scraping, slow, rhythmic, 17 seconds of it. I am not going to tell you I believe in alien abduction, but I will tell you this. If you take the evidence at face value, multiple dependent witnesses, an unidentified photograph, a recording that trained investigators have never explained, zero wreckage in a search that covered the entire area, the thing you are left with is a gap. A clean gap where a plane and a person used to be. Planes that crash leave things behind. Always metal, fuel, fabric, something. The Bass Strait left nothing. Frederick Valentich did not crash. He was removed.